Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Lethal Sales. Tonight's topic is what would you today, the today you, tell your 21-year-old you of yesterday? What kind of experience do you have? Would you like to impart to the younger generation? Larry, my name is Rhonda. You go
Yeah,
first.
since we're recording, I'll say, Rhonda, we didn't forget you. So
Thank you.
Well, I'll be glad to go first. A lot of times people think that they'd like to go back and do this different or that different. And the problem is, everything for every yin, there's a yang, and everything you do has some kind of, direct or indirect influence. And considering that I'm a little crazy, but I have a pretty fun life, I don't think I'd change too many circumstances. The only thing I would do that I would instruct my younger self is to be careful who you're loyal to. Because while I've had the same drummer in my band for 40 years, that is 40, and some friends who've been with me for life, and a lot of people on the show who I think I'll be friends with till I leave the earth. I've had some people over the past 20, 30, 40 years that I wasted time being loyal with because they weren't worth it. But short of that, I think that's what I would change. I would tell the younger Larry, hey, you don't have to be loyal to everybody. It's a strength, but it can really put you behind the eight ball when you waste time, um, you know, backing up people that don't deserve to be backed up.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more there, Larry. As we've all developed these friendships and lost others over the time period. And one of the things I would continue with is that if we had that hindsight to go back when we were 21 years old, it would give us benefit that we could never imagine that we'd have today. And we would invest in Apple, we would do this, we do that, and you know what? We can all dream that way, but it's not really reality. But one of the things I can say, what would I go back as 21 years old? And I can relate back to a story, and you've mentioned this a lot. Saturday morning sales meetings. 21 years old, sitting there selling Toyotas, and I had an old English gentleman that used to come he was the general manager of the dealership, and every single Saturday meeting, he would start the meeting by saying, "Beatings will continue until morale improves." And it was a famous line from The Bridge of the River Kwai. And if you think about it, unless you become more happy, the beatings will happen. And it's a cyclical process. But there was one other thing that he talked to me about, and he put in my head, was you will not become successful in this business until you understand empathy. And if I could be better as a 21-year-old, I would understand that statement. And unfortunately, young and dumb, couldn't realize it, just blew through on pure performance and never thought anything about it. But as I got older, it became more impactful. And that's something, if I could go back as a 21-year-old, I would understand, and I'd make myself understand empathy, and that would drive success moving forward. So to that, I'll yield to Mr. Jeff Scherer, who is on birthday dinner night.
Hey, and you know what? After Jeff, let's get to Doug. It looks like Doug's on the call. We don't see him all that often.
Absolutely.
yeah, well, my first thought was, how old is my younger self? But since Peter threw 21 out there, I'll go with that. For me at 21, it was all about the Benjamins. It's all I cared about, was making money, and making sure I had a job. But the jobs I had didn't really have any personal value to me. It was just a place where I could make good money. And, I probably, when I was maybe closer to 30, I worked for a guy that I swear was the Antichrist, and taught me so much more. And Mike Larkin and I have had some deep discussions on this, but taught me so much more about how I don't want to conduct business in my own business and other people I've worked for. So I guess, you know, finding some value, and it's easy to say, hard to do when you're 21. But, you know, having some goals, finding some value other than just thinking about the dough, you know, because I didn't have any career goals or anything at that time. And then I think the other thing that I know now, my older self, is that I'd listen more, talk less, listen more, you know, and I was always been in sales, and it was kind of the opposite. You had to talk a lot to make a sale, is what I thought.
Hey, Jeff, if you can personally message me the name of the Antichrist, because I've got a dealership in Florida looking for a used car manager. He sounds perfect.
That was in Florida too, by the way, coincidentally.
I'm sorry. Doug, would you like to tell us, looking back at when you were younger, things you would have changed or little small drastic changes you would have made?
Sure. There's a couple of things that came to my mind. First is, instead of living to work, I would have recognized that you work to live. I think too oftentimes we get caught up in the work, and we forget that it's a means to an end, and we still have a life outside of work, and that's really what's important. I think the other thing would be, I want to keep contributing to my greatest hits album. And by that, what I mean is, you never stop learning. I think at a young age, you think you know it all. And it's only through age and through time and wisdom that you realize you're always learning. You're always adding to your greatest hits album. You're always getting a little bit better, and never assume that you know everything. Be willing to be humble enough to say, I don't know and I can learn. So I think those are the two things I'd focus on.
Hey, you know what, Doug? That was, as everything you always say, it was salient and it made a lot of sense. But one thing to consider, that it's important that we make stupid mistakes when we're younger, because that's what helps us learn and grow and evolve. You know, I mean, if we came out of the womb and we were perfect, I don't think we'd ever evolve the way we have to, because I bet you everybody on this damn program has been a better person because of mistakes they made at some point in their life.
Oh, sure, definitely. And making mistakes is certainly a key part of growth. And it's learning from the mistakes is that really powers you to success.
So, in saying that, Doug, that would all lead to experience, and that experience is something that we try to give back in so many different ways in the sales journey at the dealership level. And it's really important that we continue to share those life lessons.
Indeed, indeed. And don't be afraid to share. I mean, it's so important that as we get older, we're teaching the younger generation to be better than us. And sharing those life lessons is how you do it. So, I mean, you're spot on there as usual, Peter.
Thank you.
Are
Well,
you, wait a minute, Doug, is it possible for today's youth to be better than us? I had a kid in class who was ragging me because, you sound like an old guy. I says, wait a minute. I grew up with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Ray Charles, and Otis Redding. You have Kanye West. No wonder your brain doesn't work. I think the class is still laughing at him.
Well, I would like to believe that the youth of today could be better than us. That certainly should be our goal.
Well, I agree on both parts. We look to age for wisdom, and we look to youth for innovation. And I think that's another thing. If we look to our 21-year-old self, how can we innovate moving forward in a industry that we are known as dinosaurs? We move at the speed of glaciers. And we're resistant to change. So it's the 21-year-old self that has to invoke change.
Well, yeah, and it's the 21-year-olds that instead of saying why, they say why not.
Exactly.
And we have to be willing to say that as well.
Well, you know, Doug, it's a biological fact that we're more open to learning when we're younger. They say it's much easier for a younger person to learn a second language than the older person, because we've kind of set a lot of the things in stone in our head, and it's a little more difficult to navigate around. So once again, there might be an impetuous to youth and some mistakes and some wildness and recklessness, but there's also a little bit more openness, right? I mean, when you're a kid, it's like, yeah, I'll go with you. Yeah, I'll jump in the car. Let's do it. When you're an adult and you gather certain responsibilities and certain set behavior patterns, it's a little harder to maneuver through.
I'd like to add on that, Larry, if I could, you guys don't mind. I think I would make an excellent student in my later life because didn't have the distractions that I had when I was in college, right? And now it's like I want to learn because I want to learn. In college, I had to learn because I was paying for it. So, it's a little bit different now, I think.
No, that's
Yeah, but,
totally true. I think that at our age, it's because we want to learn. We're very curious. And you're right, at a young age, I have to learn. And the curiosity isn't there. I would love to go back to college now because I'm sure I would have been a hell of a lot more valuable all the classes I took that I just basically didn't pay attention to.
Have you seen, Doug, the stuff they're teaching in college these days? I think you stick back with your old curriculum.
Well, it doesn't make any difference anyway, because whatever that debt is, it just got wiped out anyway. So
Now, no, Russell, let's not be unreasonable. Let's not be unreasonable. I think these truck drivers and plumbers and people that paid their taxes and went to trade school should definitely carry the people that took ridiculous courses, can't make a living, and now are getting bribed.
I'm sorry, Larry. I stand corrected. You're absolutely right.
I think this is why I love you, Russell, because I've been married for like 30 years now, and I don't think my wife has ever said to me, you're absolutely right. I feel very attracted to you at this moment.
Did you hear that?
So in saying that, Russell, love to hear what you have to say,
Okay,
considering your life experience.
Here's my response. Can you see that big zero?
Yep.
That's what I would tell my 21-year-old self. First of all, I wouldn't have listened. And I am where I'm at today. I'm humbled, honored, and grateful, just full of an attitude of gratitude, because if I change one thing, it would affect where I'm at right now. And I'm really enjoying where I'm at in my life right now. And it's because of all those things. Now, mistakes are something we all have. Learning from them is optional. It's not a requirement. And I made a lot of mistakes, but really, I wouldn't have listened to anybody at 21. As a matter of fact, my happy ass was in prison at 21. And I still wouldn't go back and change it, because it really would affect where we're at now. I know we're kind of like dreaming what it would be like if we go back. I get all that, but you change one thing and I probably wouldn't be in here with all of you right now online just by changing one thing.
Exactly. And that's the paradox of it all. You turn around and you say, okay, again, that hindsight, if we had that one thought process to do one thing differently that would propel us in a different direction, we would not be in the same positioning that we were today.
I used to like, because this question has come up, what would you go back if you could tell your 18-year-old self something? Well, anybody that had wisdom or age or experience tried to tell me at 18 or 21, I'd tell them to frickin' take a hike. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You see, I got it all figured out. I suffered from terminal uniqueness. You don't understand.
Well, that's what I was talking about with the law of unintended consequences, because you went through some horrendous things that you did to yourself, and all it did was get you to a point in your life where you said, I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad I'm breathing. I'm glad I can spend time with my kids. I've been around you enough by now, Russell. You bask in your friends, your family.
I do.
You're in a perpetual state of happiness, and you're just like me. I deal with a lot of crazy stuff, some aggravating things, but I'm smart enough and you're smart enough. And I think the people in this line are to say, I'm not going to let that bother me, right? It's the old t-shirt. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's step one. Step two is It's all small stuff.
True.
Hey, Mike Larkin, we always have you last, which is a shame because you're wearing a handsome.
I just caught my, did y'all see that? Did you see what Mike just did? I caught him.
Smiling?
No, he was trying not to yawn. I saw you. I saw you.
Well, wait, mate, well, Russell, I'm not offended by that because I'm
Okay.
often accused of being low energy. So I can understand why people would fall asleep on me. Go ahead, Mike. Stop yawning and start talking, and you got to hit the mute button.
Yeah.
It's strange tonight, guys. I have my camera on. You can see me, but I can't see myself in the gallery or screen or nothing. So
Wow.
hopefully this comes out okay.
You look fine.
Rhonda, I'll keep you in charge. But going back to my 21-year-old self and maybe a little later on, my two heroes in my life, and it's kind of odd that my dad, before he passed, is he told me, hey, life is short, okay? Don't live your life with any regrets. Don't go crazy, but don't live your life with any regrets. And I took that to heart. And 26 years later, I'm trying to live my good life with no regrets. Don't leave anything on the field. My other thing was on my other hero, my mom. She taught me about, hey, I asked her once, hey, what is your secret to be married with this Jamoki that I call dad? She says, well, it's communication. And I'm always striving to communicate better, more efficiently, more effectively. And that's kind of where I am right now. And that I was listening with empathy, but the lessons my dad and my mom taught me were like, learn to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. Then you'll learn and have the knowledge of empathy. And empathy is very much different than sympathy. And I'll let somebody smarter
Wait,
than
Mike,
me
I want to ask you a
answer that
question.
question. Yeah,
I want to
go
ask
ahead.
you a question. When your
Yeah.
dad was alive, and he pondered this wisdom to you, did you embrace it at that point?
Yes, I was listening, but I was like, okay, that's kind of, hey, he's sick in his bed, maybe he's on meds, but he's imparting that to me, and I remember that conversation like it was yesterday.
Because a
But-
lot of times we don't realize how smart our parents are till they're gone.
Mm.
And then it's a little too late to put our arm around them and say, you know what? I mean, thanks for giving me a basis and your DNA and all that good stuff.
Right. Well, never. I mean, I've got shoes, big shoes to fill, and I'm moving forward to living that out. For my feet are always growing, and it's growing to
Cool.
fit
Hey, but
his shoes.
before we jump to Kelly, could we hear from Fred? Because Fred, you were telling me that when you were younger, you had to dodge dinosaurs on the way to the cave for book learning, and I just want to see, what you would change.
Oh man, I should have stayed in school. No, I just got into carpentry right in high school. 12th grade, we had house construction. We built a house. The built a house.
Oh, he's in the Matrix.
You're in the Matrix, but
Oh
your
my. Maybe the dinosaurs are coming. I don't know.
AirPods in or take them out.
Can you see me? Can
There
hear
you are.
me?
You're perfect. Go ahead, my buddy.
You're perfect.
Okay. No, I was listening to Mike talk about his dad. I was thinking about my grandma. She, Grandma Thorn, she passed away, I think, 86, I think. But I talked to her in her later years, and she said, you know, Fred, when I was young, think about being old, it's so far away. It did nothing at all to get here. You know what I mean? Go so quick. I'm like, God, can't believe I'm this age already. I outlived both my parents. Way young.
Yeah, but you know what, Fred? Whatever, like a lot of the people in this show, your parents must have been a hell of a good group of people because you turned out so good. And rather than reflect on school, You came out as a carpenter. You could make a living. You felt useful. You built things. Do you know how many people have $60,000 in college debt and they're flipping burgers at Wendy's? I don't know if he's back in the Matrix or he's just thinking about $60,000 worth of debt and flipping burgers at Wendy's.
Good.
Hey, let's hear from our girl Kelly. Kelly, you're not as old as me and Fred, but I'm sure you look back on things, the path, the road less traveled and all that. Tell us if you could step back or tell yourself, your younger self, something. What would you say? What would you do? What would you possibly modify, change, or think about?
I think when we're talking about specifically education, looking at something that I feel like would have been very helpful in choosing to go into secondary education would be the idea that you need to take a year or two, step back, see what the world has to offer to make a better decision about the classes and the degree to be pursued, because there are so many more options in the world for employment than you really understand when you're coming out of high school and you're so young and you have so few experiences at that point, no matter who you are and what you've been through, that it's impossible to make an educated decision about what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I think a lot of people my age are kind of having that understanding now. There's a TikTok meme going around about, we're not into convertibles, as you can tell by the way that the market is going. And, ideally wouldn't be into cheating. So what is my age group's midlife crisis supposed to look like? And a lot of people have said it's changing careers. And I obviously have done that to some extent here recently. And so I definitely feel like there's some truth in that. And I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give to my younger self is to realize how short life is if you measure it in weeks that you have to achieve things, so that you take each week as it comes and make the most of it in whatever way seems to be your current ideal movement, and to reevaluate what is working in life and what is not working in life for you much more regularly.
Hey, can I build on what you said?
Absolutely.
I'm like, my brain's exploding because I had like 18 people in a class today, really cool people. We had a lot of banter. And one of the things I love to ask is, I quote a friend of mine, Hallie Garcia, who I met at a Toyota dealer years ago, and he got here from Cuba, and he lived by 3 laws. And one of the laws was live each day like you're dying. And I asked my whole class, why should you live each day like you're dying? And I got a lot of Hallmark card responses. Oh, you meant the right answer is because we are dying. We don't know if it's going to be in 100 years or, God forbid, tomorrow. So to not turn up the volume is insane. Plus, it's so much more fulfilling to feel like every day's vital and every day's important and you're engaged. None of us like to feel like we're not engaged, like we're not important, that we're not making a dent in things. So I'm with you 100%, Kel. Hey, looks like we got our boy Joshua Taylor on. I always try to be mindful of him because it seems like a lot of times Wednesday coincides with his family and stuff. Joshua, can you tell us what you would impart to your younger self if you had the chance?
You can do, sir. So I'll impart a little. There was somewhere in the last 15 minutes, somebody had mentioned something about education and going back, and somebody said something about student debt. So let me take you back 14 years ago as a young man at 26. My wife graduated chiropractic college in April of 2010. And in August of 2010, we got married. So in September of 2010, after we got back from our honeymoon, and we finally had a chance to breathe a little bit and sit down and really understand what had happened. We were 26, married, and $330,000 in debt. And 14 years later, here we are in our second home with a 10-year-old who happens to be in the back seat after a soccer practice. That's where I'm driving home from.
Great.
We are zero debt other than the mortgage on our home. No car payments, no credit card debt. We've paid off a recent build out on my wife's practice that we constructed in the middle of COVID. And so we've effectively paid off $430,000 worth of debt in 14 years. So my statement to my younger self is nobody will know how much pain you went through to be this successful. So go through the pain, enjoy it, learn from every single step, even more than you are now.
Interesting. I like it. Now, can you imagine having that kind of debt? And a lot of these kids are coming out of schools with no usable, discernible skills and a degree that doesn't translate to a job that'll generate that kind of income. At least you and your wife had goals and plans and were able to, to pay it back and get ahead. That's what's so scary today. How there seems to be no guide for some people. How they're not thinking through. I'm investing this. What's my ROI on my education and the expenses? But I think everybody on the show is glad to hear that story, Joshua. We love to hear people that work through things, accomplish things, and come through. It's really a good thing, man.
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, and we're just starting to see some of the payoff of that, and then the trials and tribulations of learning business, not just from
you are. I hate to interrupt my friends, but you are incorrect. You have already seen the benefits because you have a 10-year-old, you're still married, and the two of you are still forward-looking. You know how many people don't exist 10 years and they got a broken up marriage and the kids are miserable? You've accomplished more than you think you have, my friend.
Right, I appreciate that.
Hey, Wendy isn't feeling well, but I see her smiling face. Wen, would you like to tell us what you would tell your younger self if you could? If you're still with us?
I am still with you, and I'm smiling like the Cheshire cat because I've stepped back into my 21-year-old self, and I'm feeling kind of sassy because that's what I was. So what's my advice? No more frat parties. Knock it off. Oh, just kidding. That is part of it, because at 21 years old, I was working for the Milwaukee School of Engineering in the treasurer's office as the student loan exit coordinator, interview coordinator. And I had started 30 days prior at Bursar's office, and they promoted me because I was a smarty pants. I was really good in school, but I liked to party too. So yeah, that's what got me into automotive. Believe it or not, I was pursuing a mechanical engineering degree and making tons of money and just loving that environment. So yeah, that would be one of the things. But the other thing, I think, for my entire life, because it took me over 50 years to understand that I was not here to do what I thought was expected of me by my parents, by my friends, by my bosses, by everybody who felt that they should control my level of intelligence or whatever, and what I should do with it. And I think I would tell myself the same thing I've told my two children. One is a special ed teacher and one is an RN, and in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'm so very, very proud of them. But what I've told them since day one is be true to you. Don't listen to what others tell you to do with your life. And ask Fred. I blow up all the time if he tells me my back hurts. I've had back spasms all week, and he bought me a donut cushion. So I'm like, no, cancel it, send it back. I don't need it. It's whatever. It's nerves or it's whatever. I abuse the muscle tissue somehow, and I need to nurse it back to health. So be true to you and do what you want and do what drives you and use your gifts, and you will stumble and you will fall. But like I heard on Car Church this morning, the wise, you'll fall 7 times, but you'll get back up 7 times. And then
No, wait a minute, Wendy. Fred and I have grown, I think you'll agree, an incredibly close relationship.
yes.
So I just kind of think it's a little unfair that in your past were wild sexual activities and parties, and now Fred's relegated to returning whoopee cushions. Something's really wrong here. There's the Wendy smile that I love.
That's all I got.
Hey, Darren, you're another guy that's got a contagious smile. Tell us what you would have told the younger Darren.
Who said it? Russell or Larry? Someone said terminal uniqueness. Who said that? Of course, it was Russell.
It was Russell.
Thank you.
That has too many syllables for me.
We all think we have terminal uniqueness, as everybody's speaking here. So the one thing I would change, and Wendy just hit on it, and Russell talked to this before, I would tell my 21-year-old self, put down the bottle, bud. Like, what are you doing? And, Larry, like you said, be careful of who you're loyal to. Yeah, your drinking buddies. Those aren't people you want to be loyal to. You get distracted, right? That's not how to be successful. Listen more. Who was that? Was that Mike, maybe? Yeah, I should have listened to my father. I should have listened to people around me. I said, oh, no, I'm functional. I got this figured out. Yeah, successful despite myself. I've arrived. I've made it this far. Talking about the wasting time. Someone said, keep contributing to my greatest hits album. Yeah, I'm back contributing to my greatest hits album. I am putting new things on the record. Kelly, yeah, midlife crisis, quit your job, change your career. That is the new way to do it. I'm on that board. Like, that is life change. Like, I wouldn't, Rusty said you wouldn't change anything, and neither would I. But we're all so similar, and like no one is unique in this room. I can take something from what everybody said and said, yep, that's me, that's me, that's me. It's great. This human connection is where it's at. I just love it. I was out for a walk with my mom today. I spend more time with her than I ever have because time is precious, and I didn't have a great relationship with my mom for a long time. And I just sat down one day with her over a few months, and I said, I want something out of this. Like, how do we fix this? When you come over and we'll make some banana bread tomorrow. And we started from there. And now 3, 4, 5 times a week we're out. We're texting every day, and she lives close by. And life's good, eh? Like, I wouldn't change anything, but yeah, I would change one thing. But it got me here. Here I am today. Thanks, everybody.
And look how life enriching that situation is. You're making your mom happy, and she's making you happy. Because let me tell you something, brother. Nobody loves you like your mother. Okay. Right. Half the marriages in the country end in divorce. Yeah. All right. I always tell my wife, I love you, but let me say this to you. If they break into the house tomorrow and find 4 dead female bodies and 2 of them are eaten, you're leaving me. Every dealer will fire me. Who's going to hire a cannibal? My mother will be on TV going, he's a good boy. He just needs a sandwich. I always tell him, don't go to work hungry. Nobody really loves you like your mother does. Trust me on that. So that's really, really a nice thing, because you're making her life better and you're making your life better. And how insane would it be to not get together with her, and then, God forbid, down the road in 100 years she passes and you have that regret? Because man, regret is a scary, terrible, tough thing. It just takes a lot out of you. So I'm really glad to hear that, Darren. That's a really, really good thing.
Yeah. So Larry,
yes, sir.
I'm just gonna jump on something here, and I just want to give a second quarter recap or second period recap if you want to talk hockey when we're going to a 40-minute or 60-minute game, 20 minutes a period. This is a sales related program, and this is to drive opportunities so we all learn from sales. Now, if we take every single one of these conversations tonight, every single one of them, and what I've gotten out of them is it's all about relationships, to create and strive for a relationship. It's all about gaining experience. It's all about the happiness. And understanding it throughout this whole thing, we're going to make mistakes. And we're going to learn from those mistakes to move forward. Great basketball player, he wore number 23. He said, you want to double your success rate? Triple your failure rate. So we'll learn from those mistakes. So going into period 4, the final final part of the game here. I just wanted to give a quick recap and let's move on.
Well, we didn't hear from Rhonda.
Rhonda would like to tell her older self something, which is don't get involved with Larry Feldman, but it's too late for that. Go ahead, Rhonda.
So I think by virtue of the fact that I was a waitress from the time I was 14 to 21, and I had the extreme pleasure of working with my father at the same time, I learned so much before I was 21 that after I was 21, it was kind of a whole afterthought. My father was the wisest person that I ever met, and I always wanted to make him proud of me. So I always listened to him. Unfortunately, he wasn't around for a very long time. But after I was 21, like Wendy, I had to learn how not to listen to people telling me how I should live my life and follow my own heart. And that was probably the biggest lesson ever learned. And I would like to go back and tell my kid self that. And the second thing is be careful of the money.
You know, another thing I'd love to add to all this is learning from the people that you surround yourself with. Absolutely learning. I can say with unequivocally on this call, I've learned from every single person on this panel, every single one of them. I can go back to where I've quoted you in my writings. I can go back and basically understand that when I'm in conversation, I've stepped back because something you've said. I've talked about Russell and his deposit. Now it's time for a withdrawal. I've talked about all kinds of different things that have been shared with me over the last 14 months. I'm 56 years old. Who would ever imagine that I could gather something every single day and be happy to learn it? I learned something the other night from David Long. He came up with the greatest line that I've heard in a long time, as strong as fresh rope. And I just went, man, that it is absolutely impactful. That is so true. So I thank everybody for gratefulness that they've given me, or the gratitude that they've given me by sharing their experiences. And that's
So what was the line, Peter?
The line from David?
Yeah, you just said he had a great line. Let's hear it.
Sorry, I didn't realize that I faded out into the matrix. The line was as strong as fresh rope.
Oh, I thought you were saying that I thought your comment was that it was as strong as fresh rope. I'm sorry. I thought you were commenting.
I did have a comment for him, and his comment was, "Have you been in my office lately reading my playbooks?" So that was enlightening when someone of his stature says things like that. So again, the gratitude.
You know, I wanted to put my son on the spot. He's joining us for dinner, but he's driving. Because besides Kelly, Rhonda, and Wendy, I don't think any of us in this room are still in our 20s. But my son is, and I almost would like him to say how he was getting his yayas out when he was 21, and now his view. And again, I'm speaking for him, which I really shouldn't, but he's just doing amazing because he's got focus and he's got grounding, and it's amazing.
Well, it's all about mentorship as well. Just because you're your dad doesn't mean that you can't mentor.
May I? Can I
Sure.
jump in? And
Of course you
then,
can.
a little silence. So I want to give you a little pushback, Peter.
Okay.
So I didn't write down much, and now I moved my head's not really straight today, but okay, so about learning things easier when you're young. I'll give you that. I mean, I think it was 23 when I started to learn the Greek language. And my Greek ex's friends whose wives had tried and failed said, yeah, you don't have any kids, you don't have other distractions, this or that. But they were only a couple years older than me. It took him saying, yeah, you're never going to learn the language. You know how many girlfriends I had that say they're going to learn the Greek and they still don't learn. Well, I learned and I speak it better than most Greeks, and I taught my children. So I think stubbornness trumps youth. And I think because it's just part of who I am today that I swear I feel like Benjamin Button, because all I need is, well, stubbornness and no, Fred, don't get any ideas. Like, tell me I can't do something, and then I'll do it just to prove you that you're wrong. And I'll do it 3 times and then rub it in your face. But I think stubbornness and determination are right up in there at any age. And I'm excited to say that at my age, I've never been more excited and anxious. I wake up happy every morning just at the possibility, especially the human side of AI, the way I'm embracing this, just the opportunity to make a difference. And I don't see the ageism. I hear that people have that, and I'm an entrepreneur. And maybe that's why, because I own my own business. I don't have to listen to anybody and listen to the politics. I just push right past it. But point is, I think you can learn at any age, but you have to be stubborn and determined. And I think that the wisdom coupled with the determination and the stubbornness, the wisdom is huge. And I think that OGs, which I consider myself, and I don't like to call myself a senior or anything else. I like to call myself a silver, but I just think it sounds kind of cool and different, and kind of spunky, which is me too. But I think that we can be just as innovative at any age. And I don't think that it's only the young, because I see people that are young that have absolutely no drive, no determination, and they've got all the tools. They might have the book knowledge, everything else, but they don't do anything with it. So I think the winning combination is stubbornness and determination and always be learning kind of mindset and an attitude of gratitude, and to continue to be a sponge.
And Wendy, and to look at things as challenges rather than barriers or obstacles.
Oh, an investment of time, Russell, thanks to you. Instead of, even when I listen to people that want immediate results, let's move to automotive right now. We have a campaign where it's a brand new industry, brand new vertical. They want immediate results in 45 days. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And our dealers need to know, and our vendors, because they treat one another the same way. It's a marathon. You have to grow things. You have to plant seeds, water them, and you have to nurture them and watch them sprout. So, we have to invest our time into these opportunities, invest our money as well. And it's not spending money, it's investing money in growing an opportunity. And that, I think, is very important.
So just before you jump on there, Doug, I just wanted to say something about age. I'm 56. My wife thinks I'm 4 years old, so I averaged it out, so I'm 30. So that's how I feel. Go ahead, Doug. You were just about to jump in.
Well, I think that to piggyback on what Wendy said, I think part of that determination, part of that stubbornness comes with experience, knowing that in the past I gave up too soon and I didn't need to. So now at our age, we know, why would I give up when I can still learn, I can still do things? So I think experience plays in the development of the stubbornness that you described, Wendy. And maybe it's not stubbornness as much as it is just well-aged determination.
I agree.
If you want to add a little something in there to kind of pick up back on both of you, is something that I didn't realize was such a value to me as a young man at 21. I've told the story about how the 5 apprentices, when I started at my first store, and how that transpired, and how important my shop foreman was at the time, And now that I'm coaching technicians, the first rule that I try to teach them all is that the most important thing is not pay. The most important thing is not where or anything like that. The most important thing that you need to learn is that the most important thing is actually the leader with which you work for. So whether you're 18 or 38 or 58, the most important thing you can do, unless you're an entrepreneur, is find a high value leader to work for and listen to them, because they're going to be the people that are going to kick the ass of the person who doesn't have the drive, the ambition, and so forth. Light the fire so that it burns from within and outwards, and not burning the place down. It's burning inside and fueling their purpose, fuel their need to learn and grow and be. And it's people like Peter, and it's people like Russell, and it's people that on this call across all the platforms and all the things that I see, people that are driving these young people into our business because they are those high value leaders. And the second thing that I teach is you got to write. I wish at 21 I had written and journaled every day like I do now. The stories, the details that I'm missing because I didn't write it down, I can't go back and reflect on those things. So find yourself somebody who's willing to kick your ass when you need it and support you when you need it, and write everything down.
Agreed. I absolutely agreed, Josh. You know, you couldn't say it better, that the whole concept of writing and reading and that growth that will allow you to communicate moving forward, it is so imperative. But really that whole thing about writing would be the top one in my book, because we forget so much. It's so much in our lives we just forget because we just can't grasp all that knowledge and all that experience. So with the journal, man, it allows us to our capacities go up exponentially.
Hey, something that Doug and Josh said, and it reminded me of another lesson. My old man used to say, no matter how smart you think you are, there's always somebody smarter. And I learned to accept that. And every room I'm in, there's always somebody that I can learn from. And I've learned from everybody in this room. I've learned from everybody in the car industry that I've met. And I'm a better judge of character because I keep that in mind. Those persons who are just talk. Hey, the easy part is done talking about it. Where is the action behind that talking? So I always keep those things in mind. And again, the top priority is no regrets. Life's too short.
I gotta share this bubble we're going into. Sorry for I don't know if you guys can see this. We're at the melting pot and we're eating outside in a bubble. So this ought to be cool. I want to add another phrase just before I got to cut off here. But in the echo on what Mike said, no one of us is as smart as all of us. And that's what I really like about this room and all you guys as my friends.
Kind of like the Jeff, the John Kennedy line. He had a dinner at the White House where he gathered all the intelligentsia of Washington, and he said there hasn't been this much intelligence gathered in one room since Thomas Jefferson died here alone. So I guess it's all perspective, right?
Yeah, do not forget that that's where groupthink came from, because he had Camelot and all those the best and the brightest, they used to call them, but they would all come up with the same conclusion because they wanted to make each other happy and proud of each other.
Rhonda, I had that once in my dealership. I says, guys, I don't need 8 yes men. Right. And all 8 guys jumped up and went, yeah, boss, we're with you. We agree. It's the old thing. If there's 2 partners and they absolutely think exactly the same, then one of the partners isn't needed. If you don't have a little push and pull and yin and yang, then how are you going to get better? How are you going to grow? How are you going to trip over something that you weren't already doing or that maybe you could improve on?
Hey, Larry, you're in the recruiting business, and you would understand this the best. When someone goes to looks to hire someone in most positions in the dealership, they look to find a like-minded individual because they think that's the person who's going to work best with the team. They never look for the guy that is going to debate the situation. They don't look for the lady that is going to cause people to live up to expectations and be accountable. They look for someone who's going to be like-minded, and in doing so, the growth never happens. We bring the plant home from the garden center. It's in a pot. What do we do first? We pull it out of the pot and we plant it in the ground so it can grow. We never do that in the car business. It's a rarity, an absolute rarity. We always think within the box. We had never stepped outside the box. And
Peter, I love that analogy because there was plenty of guys that worked for me that I would have liked to have planted in the ground.
Well, I'm sure in East Texas there's a few people out there, right, Russell?
There is.
Yeah, but that brings to mind the great Lyndon Johnson quote when he was walking through the graveyard and they were writing down the names of people that were deceased that they could say voted Democratic, and they missed one. And Johnson said, "No, every dead guy in the cemetery has as much right to vote as every other dead guy." True story.
Awesome. So is there anything else that people would like to add tonight to experience, to share, that we can get out there over the airways to make sure that the people that are listening to this get a tidbit that they can take home?
I dropped a link in the chat to a book that I read. It's called 4,000 Weeks because the average human lives about 4,000 weeks. And I really liked a lot of the things that were included in the book. And one of the big things that they talk about is when you're looking at a situation and actions, a lot of times people talk about doing different things to be more productive with their time, but they find that they kind of wane away from whatever they decide is going to be the activity of the day or time blocking or whatever that looks like. But the thing that they talk about is looking at an activity, an action, a decision, and weighing it against, does this diminish me or does this enrich me? And it doesn't have to be an immediate enrichment, but does it make your life better? And I think that is a wonderful tool to live by in making decisions about what you're going to do with your time and your efforts. And I really enjoyed the book. It was a pretty short read. And just the idea of, all of a sudden blink and it's a new month already. And you think, where did the last 3 or 4 weeks go? Well, when you look at the fact you only have 4,000 of them, it makes each week a little bit more precious.
Good point.
Exactly. And that goes to one of the things that Russell said from his mentor: read 15 minutes a day, no more, no less. Put the book down and do it every single day. There's a GM that actually runs a dealership that I used to work out of around the corner from me. And at the end of last year, he posted on his LinkedIn that it takes him 18 minutes to get to work on average every day. 18 minutes to work, 18 minutes home. He listens to a book on Audible each direction, and he got through 83 books last year from listening to Audible. So we can expand our knowledge very simply if we just dedicate a little bit of time.
May I put one?
Go ahead, Wendy. Always.
Well, I think the biggest thing I got out of this call is out of the mouth of babes, and Joshua, you're the baby of the group. Write it down. Whether it's journaling, whether it's manifestation, whether it's putting pen to paper so that your dreams and your vision become actionable items, and then take action.
Exactly.
Vapor to paper, baby.
That is that. You know what? See, this is why it is so incredible to have a room like this with people that have, we're not like-minded, we are like-focused. So having said that, it is all about driving the best of everything. And and I'd love to say it. I said it on Brooke Furness's show the other day. Drive your inner Ted Lasso and make you the best person that you possibly can be. It's not about the winning or losing. It's about becoming the best you possibly can be, and
Right
that
on,
will,
Peter.
through osmosis, create wins. So that's what we got to do.
I'm sorry,
Larry.
Peter. Did you just say TED Talk Lasso?
Ted Lasso. I didn't
Oh,
say
the
Ted
TED
Talk
Lasso.
Lasso.
Oh my God. Okay. I
It-
was wondering if I heard that right. Okay.
But you know what? Given that show, and if anyone actually watches that show, it's one of the best coaching shows out there for life in general. And if you take the philosophies behind it, you can actually get so many just pure gold out of it. And that's why I watched it. It was also entertaining.
Okay, on that, I think we're gonna wrap up. Thanks for that, Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last words, everybody live your best life. And
Boom.
we hope to see you next week. Have a great week. And thank you all for being here. Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good night,
week,
all.
guys.